As the movement grew across the state, and certainly across the nation in NNPA member newspapers, Duke University historian Professor Tim Tyson revealed 40-year-old evidence discovered by New Hanover District Attorney Ben David of racist jury selection by prosecutor Jay Stroud in the first Wilmington 10 trial in June of 1972. Indeed, the evidence also proved that Stroud may have deliberately caused a mistrial so that he can get a favorable judge and a KKK jury to convict. NNPA newspapers, led by the Wilmington Journal, were the first to break the blockbuster news, and the North Carolina NAACP demanded that the case of the Wilmington 10 must see justice.
32 years after the federal courts overturned their sentence, North Carolina, time and time again, has refused to pardon them.
It was a situation where young people in their prime, responding to the death and the depression, 68 Martin was killed, you'd had a president killed, Malcolm had been killed, Meg had been killed. And these young people, Ben Chavis and the others, had two options. One, they could have gone into that depression and turned in a very, very negative way. And instead, they chose to stand in the nonviolent tradition and try to fulfill one of the great promises of the '54 Supreme Court decision. And basically, they were fighting for equal rights and public education for students in Wilmington. And because they chose to stand up, they were railroaded, by a very racist system. So we had to be there. Secondly, we had to be in it because of, Ben Chavis. He was an executive director with the NAACP. And I tend to look at people's contributions and think that you just don't throw that away. Even if you have differences, you don't throw that away. Thirdly, for me, the name Ben Chavis, the Wilmington 10, was a part of my household. I remember my father at meeting with people in my house. In the house, I'm Christian Church Disciple of Christ, so we're very close to UCC Church. Talking when I was a kid about how are we going to get this done. I remember having meetings at Bricks, Center down in Bricks, North Carolina, the Franklinton Center, talking about this issue. So for me, it was personal in that, in a sense, one of the first areas I learned about people being wrongfully convicted, basically being political prisoners, was the Wilmington 10. And then finally, there was no way in the world I could be president of NAACP in North Carolina at this particular moment in history and not work to overturn this 40-year-old injustice. Not just for the Wilmington 10, but realizing that we have a lot of work to do still in the way in which justice is carried out in this country and in this state. So we needed that victory, as I said the day that we had the victory celebration in Wilmington, not just to have that victory, but to inspire us to continue to fight against injustices and disparities in the criminal justice system. Well, Cash, you know that I believe, Cash, you can't win anything without coalition. I mean, for me, fusion politics or fusion movements is the essence of the best of North Carolina, the best of the country, particularly in the South. So when you had, I've tried to put an acronym around this. What we needed in this instance was what I call steadfast, SPM. You needed steadfastness. You needed a group of people that were going to be steadfast, because it was not going to happen easily, even with a decent government, even with all the facts. Remember, we had been dealing with this at least 30 some odd years, because the federal courts had already dealt with it basically in the 1980s. So, and we'd had Democratic governors, we'd had Republican governors, they all had the same facts. They had a federal court saying that this was not right, it was unconstitutional, and yet, for whatever reasons, North Carolina had resisted. So for the Wilmington Journal, Cash for You, and Mary Alice and others, and lawyers, to come together, it had to be a group of people that, number one, would be steadfast. Number two, we had to be able to put pressure in many different ways. So we had to have the legal pressure. You had to have the organized civil rights pressure. You had to have the pressure of the media. And you would have to have the pressure of the black press, because the other press was not going to pick it up. You had to push and push and push until finally they would come into it. We needed people who understood the history. We needed white, we needed black, we needed people that ran blogs. We needed persons that could start online petitions and could come at this from many, many different angles. So you needed steadfastness, you needed pressure, then other things, you needed a miracle. And as you said, that was a powerful moment to be at that altar, you know, and human hands handing them this emancipation, but also in some ways we hear singing in the background, his truth is marching on, you know, that hymn, or and in some way the mysterious hand of God is in the middle of this, saying to them, now we give it back to you. We give it back. You know, you can't always give back all that happened in those 40 years, but it is such a remarkable victory and a testament to the power of coalition, the power of people working together, and to memory. It says to us, we can't forget people because the system decides we should.